Hey guys, Evan Ork here, back in another video, and today we're going to be doing a review in the Godzilla Singular Point Jaguar Bandai figure. The first thing I like about this figure is the paint job. The paint job on this figure is pretty good, and I say that because of the booming colors. Now I know you guys might be saying to yourselves, well, like literally 60% of this figure is like a very, very light tan white, and you'd be correct, but I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on the fact that the colors that are there that aren't this tannish white are a very, very nice booming contrast. All the colors, with the exception of maybe this yellow color we see on the elbows and shoulders, are all booming colors. Even the black can be kind of booming, even though it's not a bit of a light color, because it just stands out completely. And of course, I don't even have to go into shading, but because the design isn't supposed to have shading, it's supposed to be a mechanical kaiju. Of course, that's what Jaguar is. And there's not supposed to be any shading because it's not like a natural kaiju, a biological kaiju. But when it comes to this, however, the paint job that we do have that's booming is the red, the blue on both the eyes and the neck, and the silver here that is on his chest and lower stomach area. I guess the yellow that surrounds it isn't exactly booming, but it's a nice touch. But overall, the paint job in general is very, very good. There aren't any paint scuffs, and as I said earlier, shading isn't a problem for this figure because that's not how it was meant to be designed. We even have some of the red wiring in the back, which has a very nice red paint color, which is nice. So overall, the paint job on this figure is pretty good. So let's go into the next thing I like about this figure. The next thing I like about this figure is the articulation. The articulation for me is a solid average. I say that because all Bandai figures should have at least 4 joints of articulation, and this has exactly that. It has the legs here, it has, and of course the 2 arms. That means it has 4 joints. I think, which I'll get into later, there could have been a few more joints of articulation, but that's kind of about it for the articulation. So let's get into the next thing I like about this figure. Next thing I like about this figure, which is a solid average for me, is the detail. The detail on this figure is solid average because there isn't much to recognize. Most of the material this figure is made out of is smooth. There aren't really any spines or spikes or anything like that that can make it stand out in terms of detail. Of course, there are these layered kind of like rubbery parts of the kaiju which are accurate to the design and do have a detail that is quite nice and of course can be felt as well. Also get the same thing with the neck. The neck kind of has a similar thing where it has this blue rubbery kind of texture as well, and the detail on that is also very, very nice. Facial detail is okay. Again, most of it is just the smoothness of the vinyl. There isn't any detail that they made afterwards, but overall it's, I guess, a pretty good sculpt for the general body of the figure. So let's get into the cons of this figure. So I have one con and a pretty big nitpick for this kaiju when it comes to cons. So the con that is the major one is the fact that, well, this kaiju is 4 inches tall, around 4 inches, 5 inches, and all Bandais are 6 inches. Now I know that might sound like a really stupid thing to critique, but I don't see any reason why this shouldn't have been a 6-inch. And the reason why this is a problem is because of scaling. Whenever you scale this to any other figure from Godzilla Singular Point, it's going to look weird. Now granted, in the actual series, Jaguar is actually supposed to be maybe like 3 times the size of a human. But what I have an issue with is that if you were to have this figure pose alone, it looks obviously small. I mean, even the way I position figures in these reviews, you can tell it's maybe at this height or around there, but this just goes all the way down to here. So it's around 4 inches, 5 inches. I just think it's a big issue because of scaling, and I think it's not really something that should matter as far as making it 4 inches or 5 inches. It should just be the classic 6 inches that Bandai has always done. The next thing I dislike about this figure revolves around the articulation. As I said earlier, I would give a critique on the articulation because even though it's a solid average, of course, a con can apply to that later when you could say, well, this also deserved to be a piece of articulation. And that goes to the head. The head could have 100% become a piece of articulation along with the arms and the legs, and that could have made it a above average because the articulation was around average. It was just okay for 4 joints. That's how much a Bandai figure should at least have. But I just find it really annoying when there are so many options to add more joints of articulation, but Bandai decides to pass on it. Like, the articulation on this figure, while I know Bandais aren't known for it, could be better than they are typically. If you were to just add 1 more joint of articulation, it could be 5 instead of 4, and then I would have given it a bigger pro, and then you guys would have known what moves and what doesn't. And the head is the perfect opportunity for that. But of course they chose for it to connect to the rest of the vinyl, making it not a joint. And overall, I just find it really, really annoying, and that's why it's a nitpick for this figure. Overall, I'd rate this figure an 8.5 out of 10. I do think it's a pretty good figure. I actually don't like the design of Jaguar in Godzilla Singular Point. I find it weird because I think his chest is too round. He kind of looks a little fat, I'm going to be honest. but the design has nothing to do with the figure. I'm reviewing the figure, and the figure itself is good, and I would recommend. Again, design-wise, that's for another discussion. Maybe in a live stream I'll do, because I think I've already talked about that with you guys. But again, that's not to say the figure isn't good. The figure is good for what it is based off of the design, and I would recommend getting it as far as Bandai figures go. So, again, yeah, that's the end of that. So, there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys later, and bye-bye.